Hello, for this video I want to show you how to use mastery settings in your courses to track learning objectives such as criteria that you want to grade on. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what that looks like and then show you how to set it up as well. So you may have noticed a mastery tab in your course. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up here in my test course. And if I click on mastery, what it does is it shows me my students' progress towards meeting the different mastery levels for the criterion in my course. So you can see here, my students here have our green basically indicates that they've achieved a score over a certain percent that I've designated for mastery, but I also can designate how many times a student will have to achieve that score to be able to be considered mastering that section. So you'll notice here, green is good, it's working towards that progress, but I don't have a star showing mastery achieved like I do in this category here. And you can see the red basically shows that my average score is below that threshold, and they have also not achieved mastery. So if I hover over any one of these categories and these numbers, it will show the scores for each of those assignments tagged with this learning objective, and then you can see that I have not yet achieved mastery. So to set this up, what you're going to do is you're going to go into your mastery tab, and you're going to go into your mastery settings, and you're going to determine your different levels. So this is probably something determined by your coordinators, also by your department chairs. But what you want to do is set the minimum score achieved to meet expectations, and then the minimum score achieved to exceed expectations. And then you also want to decide how many times a student must hit this meet expectation score. So in this case, it's a 70 for my student, in order to consider in the category to have mastered that learning objective. And then I can also determine, do I want to use just an average? Do I want to just pick the highest scores? Or do I want to use a decaying average, which basically says that I will grade the most recent observation, or factor that in, I should say, as 75% of the factoring, as opposed to just averaging between all of the different scores in that category. So I'm weighting the most recent observation a little bit more, or a lot more in this case, than my other learning objectives, my other assignments that I've set up with those. And then I can set my scale, which is either numeric, or I can use the MYP grade scale, which would turn it into letter grades. So that's also something you'd want to determine. So in this case, you can see since I've set this as 3, if I go back into my achievements, because even though this student has right here successfully hit that meets expectation twice, because it's only 2 out of 3, they have not yet considered mastery. And in this case here, you can see I've achieved all 3 scores at that level, so this student has achieved mastery here. Okay, so to set up those mastery, those learning objectives, what you want to do is go into your resources, and you'll notice there's a learning objective section. So if I click on that, here are the ones that I've created. Now, probably would create additional strands for each of these criterion grades if I were to do this full out for my class. Since it's just a demo, I just created the MYP design criterion objectives here. To do that, I just go to add, and then I can create a custom learning objective, so I can set up what I want for my course. There are state standards, there are some different things you can search through here. Some of them may be out of date, depending on your mileage may vary. You can see here, this is the 2013 Sunshine State Standards, or sorry, Next Generation Science Standards based upon grade. So I can pull those out. Once again, I don't know how updated these all are, so that's going to be up to your discipline to determine if these work for what you're trying to do. But they definitely would work for creating personal ones here based upon your MYP DP grading objectives, your grading criterion, where you could set those up in here. So I've just go ahead and created the 4 criterion here for the design. And once I have that, I can also now use these when I go ahead and create an assignment. So let me go back to a course here. And let me just select one of these assignments and show you. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this. This will also be something I can do when I create the assignment But once I have it, down at the bottom, you'll see it a little learning objective category. If I selected the align, here is where I'll be able to go into those custom and personal objectives and then choose which one or several, I can pick more than one, that I want to attach to this assignment and I want to track for mastery. So in this case, I'm just going to pick the one again. So now when I go through and when I grade, I can check mastery. It will show me graphically whether or not a student has achieved mastery for that criterion. One of the things you can see here is even though the student has, you can see they've achieved one of the three, they've achieved that score. So I can achieve a score lower than the average and yet still master if I were to change the settings here. If I were to decide that I only need that student one time to hit that meet expectation goal, then you'll notice this student, even though their average is below that amount, because I'm only saying they need to do it one time, they will have achieved mastery because they hit that one time that I've requested. So depending on how you want to set this up, you can have students that are basically mastering the skill but not achieving the score. So that's completely up to your department and your coordinators on how you want to set this up. Once you have had this set up the way you want, one of the things you can do is you can now go into your individual criterion and see how many students have achieved that mastery. So if I were to select these, it's actually going to, and click on the learning objectives, I actually will get a breakdown, a graphic breakdown of my students, the average score, how many students have hit that mastery level. So you can see here on my different levels that I've set up for meet, and then here's my exceeding expectations, so you can see where students fall as well as the averages, the medians, and all of that. So it gives you a little more data information to see, and then I can export this out if I want to take a look at it in a little bit more detail. So this has been the mastery settings for Schoology. There's a lot you can do with this. If you have any questions on how to set this up for your course or maybe dig a little deeper into this, as always, please reach out to me. Thank you so much for your time.